Okay, so now I'm going to get into some of the more complicated parts of the story. A lot of people have been wondering, is this a dream or is this reality? And I don't think any of that really matters. I think pretty much what happens is that there are these things called the Old Ones, and the way that they commune with people or make contracts with people or the way that they interact with people is actually through dreams. And the dreams can actually have an impact and kind of like distort reality, and it kind of becomes a big mesh of crap. But there's a really particular way to communicate with an old one, and it's really easy to mess up. And I think that there's only been one successful contract that's been formed in the game so far that we know of, unless the Queen has formed a contract that we don't know about, which is very likely because you can revive her using an alien or cosmic altar, but we don't have an umbilical cord that talks about her, and we don't have any sort of information regarding anyone she would have made a pact with. So it's kind of curious as to why she has this ability. But either way, like, that's completely different part of the story. But pretty much what the umbilical cords do is they grant a particular person a lot of insight, but then pretty much when an old one loses a child or loses a baby, it tries to find a surrogate child. And what the scholars of Bergenworth believed was that if they took a child and offered it up to the god, and the god pretty much used this special umbilical cord to connect to it, that this child would become ascended, and it would become sort of the next ascended form of humanity. However, in Margot's case, what we found was that when she ascended, she actually resulted in a stillbirth of her brain, like her brain stillbirthed. And it looks like, according to the umbilical cord, that the old one's brain also stillbirthed. So it resulted in both of them becoming kind of weird, like not correct. And this is sort of a personal theory that I have, because there's not enough evidence in the game that, like, I guess, like, I can't really explain it, like, there's not enough evidence that, like, supports it without sort of a lot of implication. But there's the boss, I always forget his name. He's the one you fight in Menace's Nightmare. He says that Kos gave Rom his eyes. So Rom wasn't an old one originally, I don't think. I think that Rom was ascended, and that Kos or Cosm ascended him. But either way, it seemed like one of the umbilical cords implies that Willem tried to connect with Rom. And I think maybe that also resulted in a stillbirth of their minds, because both of them, if you look at them, Rom is the vacuous spider, which means empty-headed spider. And then if you look at Willem, he's also very much empty-headed. And they're both sort of together at the lunarium and stuff, so it's pretty cool. And then, but that's like entirely up to the player, I believe. I don't think that there's like a particular like right way to interpret that. But it's also interesting that what's it called? We see the maiden, I don't know what her name is yet, because I need to do Chalice Dungeons, but the woman in the wedding dress, we see her during that scene. So I'm going to find out more about her, because she appears during that, and it seems like it has something to do with the moon ritual happening near the lunarium, which said that Rom, the Burnworth spider, knew a lot of secret rituals, so maybe Rom also knew some sort of ascension ritual that would allow you to connect with the umbilical cord thing to the old thing. Yeah. But me and a couple of my friends, me and Bailey and Carl and Manny and everybody else were kind of joking about the gross Gearman, because he always kind of makes like gross comments about the doll. But if you actually go to the place that like I showed in the video, the actual gameplay video that I posted, it takes you to the origin of the nightmare. And so it seems that Gearman successfully connected an umbilical cord to the moon presence and pretty much became the moon presence surrogate or host. And he's trapped, pretty much. And he doesn't want any other hunter to have to experience what he's experiencing, so he kills them and sets them free once they get to a certain point. However, if you actually kill him, you will succeed him and live this eternal nightmare for the rest of your life. It seems that if you examine some of the doll's stuff, that she was created as a companion for Gehrman and that he was obsessive and manic about her existence. And it may be implied that he tried to use the umbilical cord to create his workshop and his doll to sort of become a reality, because all those things are within this like abandoned workshop that we find. They're all inactive though, and they're all sort of ruined. So it seemed, and like I said, like if you read it, the doll's tear and like her clothes, it says that someone was obsessed and naive and wanted this person as a companion. But it seems that Gehrman may be sort of unsatisfied, as he seems to want to protect other hunters from having to take his place. So it seems like maybe he tried to ascend, or maybe he tried to ascend the doll, or maybe he tried to ascend something, and then he got trapped by the moon presence. So it's pretty cool. I like that sort of little tidbit that's in there, but it definitely is it's heavily implied through item placement and not so much through dialogue. So that is up to the player. I think that it's kind of hard to really connect the dots. It's weird. It's very weird. So pretty much the first ending kind of implies that the player's been set free from the nightmare. But even though the ending appears happy and that it appears you wake up from your dream, it doesn't prevent the old ones from existing and from achieving their goal. The second ending, you take Gehrman's place as the surrogate for the moon presence, and then the third ending I will make a video on next. So it gets really complicated and kind of weird with dreams and reality and all of that, and that's very Lovecraftian, and that's also pretty cool. But yeah, sometimes I feel like people will argue about like whether or not it's real, when ultimately that doesn't matter because the plot is more focused around just like this fear of madness and this idea of sort of like abandoning morals in order to achieve enlightenment, or in order to achieve ascension or whatever. And I think those are just the main morals that should be focused on instead of like all these weird things, because like I said, much of the plot does have holes in it, or there is missing information, and that very much could be a development thing, or it could be just a writing thing. So it's not everything is perfect, obviously, especially within video games, and I think obviously with some of the more ambiguous bits, it's definitely up to the player to sort of fill in those holes. So I think that that's probably the fun part though for most of you. And that's it for this video, and then I'll make a third video on Marigo's original birth mother, I'm assuming, and the third ending of the game.